Hi, my name is Jocelyn Neal, and in this workshop I will talk about how to score the sight singing questions on the AP Music Theory exam. The scoring guide is published and publicly available, so I encourage you to go ahead and read through that as well. But let's dive in. There are 2 sight singing melodies on the AP Music Theory exam, and each melody is worth a maximum of 9 points. In order to score this melody, we will first divide the melody into 8 half-bar segments. We will award 1 point for each segment that is correct in both pitch and rhythm, and we will judge pitch based on the first note that the student sings. The melody does not have to be sung in the printed key. If at least 1 segment is correct, we will also award 1 additional point, which we call the flow point, for a complete response that has no hesitations or restarts. So let's try out this system. Here's a performance of the melody. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, re, mi, la, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, so, mi, la, so, fa, mi, re, fa, ti, do. In that case, every segment was correct in pitch and rhythm based on the first note I sang, so we would get 1 point for each of the correct segments and 1 additional flow point for a total score of 9. Now let's try that again. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. In that case, segments 1 and 2 were correct. Segment 3 had an incorrect rhythm in it. Segments 4 and 5 and 6 were correct. Segment 7 had an incorrect pitch in it. Segment 8 was correct. So I would get 6 points for correct segments and 1 additional point for the flow point. So my final score would be 7. Now, if a student starts over or sings the melody more than once, they cannot earn the flow point, even if the last response was otherwise perfect. So if the student does this, do, mi, so, fa, mi. Okay. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, re, mi, la, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, so, mi, la, so, fa, mi, re, fa, ti, do. They would only get a score of 8 because they are no longer eligible for the flow point once they start over. The readers who score the exam are taught to score the last complete response on the recording. If the student sings the melody twice, for instance, they're going to score the last performance, not the first, regardless of which one was better. Now, the syllable or word that the student is singing on does not matter. The octave in which the student sings the note does not matter, and a performance can even switch octaves in the middle. So it's fine to sing on solfege, numbers, letters, a neutral syllable, random words, or any sound at all. They're just scoring pitch and rhythm. Let me perform the melody to show this particular principle. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, re, mi. That would still be a score of 9 because my pitches and my rhythms were correct, regardless of the syllable or the word on which I'm singing. The same thing is true if you have to switch octaves in the middle of the performance. So for instance, this would still be correct. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, re, mi, la, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, so, mi, la, so, fa, mi, re, fa, ti, do. Even though I jumped octaves a couple of times in that melody, the pitch classes and the rhythms were still correct. Now, if you switch keys in the middle of the melody, you won't get credit for the segment where you changed keys because the intervals are going to be incorrect in that segment, but you can get credit for the subsequent segment as long as the approach interval is correct. And then we continue scoring in the new key. For instance, I'm going to modulate in this melody. Do, 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 this case, I sang segment 3 incorrectly, so I will not get credit for segment 3. However, I approached segment 4 from a half step below, and from segment 4 on, I was simply singing in a new key. That new key came with a correct approach to it, and therefore segments 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be scored as correct. I will still get my flow point, and my total score for that performance would be an 8. Let me show you another case where that modulation is not going to allow the correct approach interval. Do, 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 in this case, I sang segments 1, 2, 3, and 4 correctly. Segment 5 was incorrect. The approach to segment 6 was an incorrect interval. It was not an ascending perfect fourth, so I'm not going to get credit for segment 6, but I am going to get credit for segments 7 and 8. So I'm going to end up getting credit for 6 correct segments plus my flow point, and a final score would be a 7. If you switch tempos in the middle of the melody, you won't get credit for the segment where you changed, but you can get credit for the subsequent segment in the new tempo, and then you continue scoring in that new tempo. Here's an example of that. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, re, mi, la, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, so, mi, la, so, fa, mi, re, fa, ti, do. In that case, my rhythm was incorrect in segment 4, but effectively that was a change in tempo, and by the time I got to segment 5, my new tempo was established. Segments 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all correct, so I would get credits for segment 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would get my flow point, and my total score would be an 8. Now, in order for segment 8 to be counted as correct, the note must be held for the notated value, plus or minus no more than 1/8 note. So here would be a correct performance of segment 8. I'll sing segments 7 and 8. Re, fa, ti, do. Now the shortest that note value could be is this. Re, fa, ti, do. And the longest, re, fa, ti, do. Anything shorter than the shortest or longer than the longest that I just demonstrated would not allow you to get credit for segment 8. Quick breaths are okay as long as the basic metric pulse is not disrupted and the rhythmic attacks are all placed correctly. So it's okay to breathe in the phrase. Here's a demonstration of that. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, re, mi, la, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, so, mi, la, so, fa, mi, re, fa, ti, do. That would still be acceptable. If I took too long a pause or a breath or what would count as a real hesitation in the melody, I would lose my flow point. Now, when we finish scoring the melody using that regular scoring guide, we're going to look at our score. If we got less than a 4 using the regular scoring guide, we are then going to switch to the alternate scoring guide. Now, there's no flow point available when we are using the alternate scoring guide, and we are not going to be combining points from the regular scoring guide and the alternate scoring guide together. Let's check the performance holistically for correct pitches. This is regardless of the rhythm, and we can award up to 4 points for a performance based on the accuracy of the pitch. So here is a performance where we would get no points on the regular scoring guide, and we're going to try the alternate scoring guide for pitch. Do, 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 No segment was correct in pitch and rhythm, but when we check the alternate scoring guide, in this particular case, all of the pitches were correct, so this performance would earn a score of 4. If we don't earn at least 2 points from checking pitch on the alternate scoring guide, we're going to check rhythm, and we will award points holistically based on correct rhythms, regardless of pitch. The maximum score for the rhythms is going to be a 2. Here's a performance where we would be using the alternate scoring guide and awarding 2 points based on rhythm. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Holistically, that would get a 2 for rhythm. Now please note that there are no points awarded for just speaking the letter names or the solfege syllables, so this performance would not earn any points. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, re, mi, la, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, so, mi, la, so, fa, mi, re, fa, ti, do. That's going to earn 0 points. Now, once we've checked the alternate scoring guide, we're going to choose the score that is higher, whether that came from the regular scoring guide or from the alternate scoring guide. If we didn't get any points at all yet, we have one last option, and that is to check the performance for redeeming qualities. Redeeming qualities are the retention of tonic, correct contour, a correct interval, a correct rhythm, and if you can find at least 2 different redeeming qualities in the performance, you can assign a total score of 1 point for the performance. Now, we always want to use what is called candidate-oriented scoring, where the goal is to award points wherever possible rather than to penalize mistakes. If a pitch is slightly out of tune, it can still receive credit. Any vocal cracks or breaks or squeaks are completely ignored and they are not counted against the performance. The quality of the voice or the tone production does not matter. And very quick corrections are also tolerated. So if a student sort of slides into a note or has the slightest hesitation, that's going to be ignored in the scoring. Let's take a quick look at the scoring statistics, and we'll look at 3 years of scores here. For sight singing question 1, there were 9 points available, and the mean score, as you see, is usually just above 5 points out of 9. Standard deviation there is about 2 3/4. If we look at sight singing question 2, again, there are 9 points available. The mean score is typically around 3.5, and the standard deviation there is also around 2.5 points. So that's a quick introduction into how to score sight singing for the AP Music Theory exam. Thanks for watching.